Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Deep Thoughts. Alrighty. I can't believe it's taken me this long to have the epiphany to record this episode. This is about the Flat Earth Battlegrounds. This episode is, if you were to put it into visual metaphor, it would be, it's like Gangs in New York. The movie Gangs in New York. On one side, I got all the flat earthers. We got meat cleavers and baseball bats and loud, bullhorns. And on the other side, I got all the globers. And they have all the same shit. Both sides look very fit and formidable. And they feel super passionate about their perception of the earth or their uncertainty. And maybe there's like a mutt group sort of in the center. And they're sort of like, well, I'd love to know which one of you guys are going to win this battle, because then I'm just going to join what's left. We're not even going to fight the battle. We're just kind of sitting in the center. So we have a listener that came in and made a comment and on YouTube. Then we've had some followers on Facebook. And I want you to know that before we start, I love and respect all of you. You have to know that. That's not some bullshit statement. I love you in that, bro. I don't know what you call a girl. Bra? No, I don't think so. But we have folks that are very passionate about flat Earth, and I get a kick out of it personally. I think that the memes are funny, but some people are getting a little disenfranchised that there's more representation on the flat Earth side than there is on the globe Earth side. Part of me is kind of like, well, everyone thinks it's a globe. So the debate is it different? Now again, globe Earth has only been around 500 years. Flat Earth was around for flat, round disc, held in by ice, is around for millennia before that. Doesn't mean it's right. Doesn't mean globe's right. I mean, maybe if there's a center group that's willing to get into the brawl, some three-way brawl, some old New York Bronx brawl, some, Warriors 2.0. It's all about fucking flat Earth. Wouldn't that be funny? Bring them all back. Swan. Cyrus. The Rogues. Baseball Furies. Turbo ACs. The Riffs. The Sorensen sitting right next to the Jones Street Boys. And nobody is wasting nobody. That is a miracle. And miracles are the way things ought to be. Absolutely. First R-rated movie that I absolutely fell in love with, The Warriors. But what is surprising to me is this passion that people have for the shape that they think that the world is. A passion for flat Earth, a passion for round Earth, a passion for, it's funny because the Matrix people, it's almost like they're the beatniks that are kind of sitting outside, man, and they got their fucking jazz going, everyone's playing a really cool fucking dynamic riff. The Matrix people are like, it doesn't matter. You're both fucking wrong. It's all goddamn Matrix. And because you manifest your own reality, for you it is round, and for you it is flat. They're hip cats up there in that Matrix world. I believe it's round because I believe in expanding Earth. I have never been able to reconcile expanding Earth with the flat disk model. At the same time, I love it when someone can ping me with a meme, with some visual example, some movie that makes me go, oh yeah, there's that thing. It really does seem flat, doesn't it? Isn't that weird? And so I try to reconcile it in my mind with the ethereal model of the universe. And, I think the jury's out in its absolute form. The jury's out on everything. Again, if you believe it's a globe, well, Jesus Christ, well, why don't you get your NASA agency to give you a picture of the Earth from fucking space that we can believe? That's the problem. I believe it's round. But I believe it because I can see all these continents that have torn apart from each other. And when you shrink and get rid of all the oceans, if you were literally to take a globe, your average globe on Earth, hopefully Peter projection map globe, but any globe, and you wrap it in leather completely, and then you cut away right where the continents are, everything that's ocean, and you throw that part of the leather away. you should be able to come up with a fairly decent, it'll be a little wobbly because things have stretched and turned just a little bit as they scooted around as the new surface created itself from the bowels of the earth. You'd be able to make a little soccer ball. No subduction, no shrinkage. Maybe there's erosion due to the ocean existing for the first time, but it's going to be minimal. If you need to, cut about a 1/4 inch of leather where the oceans are. That way give yourself a little bit of the erosion back. When I see the deserts of South Arizona, which is featured in Westworld, and you see those plateaus that go way up, you're looking at ancient Earth. That's the old surface of the Earth up there. When you see all the tilted, formations on the Earth, you're looking at old Earth that has sunk into the ground because it ripped. And when it ripped, corrosion from rain and everything got in there, and eventually it fell inward. It would just happen. It does happen. But that's not what the episode's about. I'm not trying to go one way or the other. What I'm going to try to address is this, I hate to even say it because it's such a used up phrase nowadays and it's being used for things that are absurd, I think, in a lot of instances, but this intolerance of each other's opinions. Now again, someone who comes in and says, look, man, I'm tolerant, but Jesus Christ, when I go to your Facebook page, there's 80% flat earth posts and almost no globe representation whatsoever. And so it's bias. And and for people that think that it's a psyop from some intelligence agency, well, you might be right. I don't know. Shit, I don't belong to those organizations. I sure as fuck ain't getting paid to do this show. So you have a point. It's like my moderators are watching this, and if I said to them, look, okay, well, maybe we should pull back a little bit on, just pounding the feed with one species of post, which is all flat earth. I'm sure they're getting the point by themselves. Then I'm kind of like riding that fine line of censorship within the channel. I think perhaps we could do something about equal representation, but wouldn't it suck to have to go, I got to really group, let's say on a particular day, someone has been gathering really funny memes about flat earth and they post it up on some alternative website. Our moderator sees it, drags them all down. They literally are gut-bustingly funny memes. And now the guy's like, well, okay, I got to wait for Monday is this post and Tuesday's that post. And if no one posts anything between my post and the next post, it's going to look like I'm still being biased and it's all flat earth. I really don't want to play that game. I want my moderators to feel comfortable. Now, do I find someone who's a glober and make them a moderator? Well, moderators are hard to find. People that have that empathy of an audience and they're into the show a lot. I very specifically picked 2 gentlemen who have a history of watching every single episode that's ever been made. Maybe even a couple of them 2 or 3 times. And that way, when they look at content, they know I've done an episode and they can kind of link it up. So if you're a glober, let's put it that way, and you have a good temperament, and you're not going to get all pissed off and have some goddamn posting war with the other moderators, maybe you submit your information and your case to me through the DeepMind account. That is my personal account that's right there on the page. But before we go there, let's think about this. Because I'm trying to figure out why, in my heart, I have no problem with the debate, even though I don't believe it. It's a very similar situation to my friends that believe in Jesus Christ and find all of their salvation and daily mode of operation through their belief in Jesus and the Bible. And they're the most wonderful people. I would trust them with anything in my life. In fact, I more than just trust them, I might call on them because they're such wonderful human beings. And they derive their morality from a story that I think is a story. Inspired by God? Oh, yeah, absolutely. But aren't all stories that are good with truth and parables in them? But now what would be, let's say that I am going to play a fictional character and I'm this new moderator that comes in that wants to do globe stuff. What do I post? If I wanted to post one legitimate picture of Earth from space, I can't. There are none. There are none. The blue marble shot from Apollo 17 is a composite shot of a bunch of high-altitude planes potentially some high altitude satellites, but they still screwed up the Red Sea on the first iteration. Now they fixed it. The last shot that NASA submitted was then a composite, and the artist that did it did an interview with another girl, and he said the famous phrase, well, it's a composite, it has to be. It's a composite, it has to be. Why the hell would anyone working for NASA say that the only way to get a shot of Earth is a composite? We got geocentric orbit satellites. Geocentric orbit starts around what? 32,000 miles up? Well, that's plenty of distance. The ball is only 7,900 miles across. So let's just turn that into feet. Let's divide it by 1,000. All right, so 7.9 feet ball, and you're 32 to 36 miles out. Or feet, excuse me. So you have a 8-foot ball, and you're, let's just say, 34 feet away. Do you think you could fit that in your iPhone shot? I could. Why we don't have millions of shots per second of the Earth from space is just is inexcusable. So if I was that person, or let's just say I take it on because I created the show and all this other crap, what am I going to post? ISS shots? It's a tall order to fill. Do I just walk around chastising people because it's what I learned in school? Well, God, if I did that, I'd be chastising everyone who thinks that Lee Harvey Oswald didn't kill JFK. That official history is real history. But why do I personally have no problem and other people do? I even see examples of things, and I won't mention them so I do not offend any of the listeners. People will submit examples to me, even examples they worked very hard on putting together, and I think it's silly. I think that it doesn't prove their point whatsoever. Sometimes I think that people lack some basic knowledge of space and just the physics of trajectories and that sort of thing, but I so celebrate the fact that they're awake. They're trying. They care. One of the anxieties that I dealt with, which was almost a PTSD kind of hidden anxiety in myself, I had this anxiety without a source. When it came to the moon mission stuff, and I first started talking to people way before there was this massive movement online to expose it, was people would treat me as if I want things to be bad. Like I wanted things to be all upside down. And then I'm the special savior. I'm the Paul Revere who comes in on his horse and I'm saving everyone. You know, Alex Jones has said it several times. He'd rather be doing something else than his show. Now, I'm not convinced that's the case. I'm not convinced his ego can handle not being famous. I'm sure he's used to making millions of dollars now, too. But I think that everyone has that inside them who's sort of in the conspiracy world where you devote a lot of time to it. Now, again, this show should be able to exist without any conspiracies at all because there's all kinds of social issues and existential issues that we can focus on. It's a weird thing to be standing next to two groups that disagree so vehemently. And I want to say some people, and I want to make sure that for the individuals that know that they express themselves and that you were frustrated, I want to make sure that you don't feel alienated by this episode. This is just us coming together at the Thanksgiving dinner, or maybe just a good old meal. We all love each other. We're sitting at the dinner table, and I'm just talking. I'm the uncle sitting on the corner on the end over there. So don't feel weird if you think this is directed at you. If you find yourself in this, I know there's plenty of folks that are kind of on the fence, and some folks that are globes, but they do enjoy it like me. They enjoy the other debate. Like I said in a previous episode, the people that I hang out with are unbelievably frank about them believing that it's flat earth. They never talk about it. They'd never talk about it, but when I bring it up, they'll go, oh, I think it's flat. And these are brilliant people with like amazing careers in sciences. And so I'm like, oh, that's cool. You know, it's kind of wild. You know, the other thing is when they say that, they're not the people that go home and marathon 20 YouTube shows to confirm it. They've just seen enough. The reason why I want to bring this up, outside of just the little bit of discussion that's gone on the Facebook channel And again, some of these comments that are coming in, a brand new guy joined, I don't know if he joined the channel, but he made a comment tonight. We're episode 352 at the time I'm recording this. He said that he came to the Facebook and the channel, and it's his belief that I am towing a lot of baby boomer targeted memes, and so it sort of, for him, is lacking the intellectual discussion that he wanted the channel, at least the Facebook page, to have. And some of that's my fault because I don't have enough time to do everything I'm doing right now in my life and really engage in deep conversations. Now, most of you know that I reply to almost every single human being on the YouTube channel. I try to give intelligent responses. I'm definitely getting more time at this point exactly to get into the Facebook posts, which is cool. I typically try to steer away from some of the dark stuff. So, I'm as amazed as you with weird, crises that happen in the world where it seems like there's some fuckery going on. I've lost a lot of my life to a lot of the darkness out there, and I'm sort of done with that phase. So again, the motto of this show is to help the world rebuild from the bottom up. Because I think that we're ready and we're able to do it, but I'm not sure we have, when I say ready, we're psychologically ready, but perhaps we don't have all of the answers that would kind of get us to the next level. So I don't know what the percentages are. There's a lot of brilliant, wise people out there. Unfortunately, they don't all have channels on YouTube. Some of them do, and they're just not exactly the best communicators. So I think I have a gift of communication, so I'm going to do my best to harvest maybe some of the more less articulate or less polished individuals, and I'll move it into this format, restructure it such that it's digested properly by people that really want to get the core wisdom out of it, right? But this archetype of being frustrated with flat Earth versus globe Earth is an archetype that is going to occur and has been occurring for a really, really long time in any debate that's out there. Is there a God? Well, you're going to have people do the same thing. Was Jesus real or fake? Same thing. Was Roswell real and then alien was recovered? Same thing. So in order to make sure that we don't stall such that, the tire's spinning and we're not going anywhere, I think we have to figure out a way to deal with that frustration. And part of me is sort of happy that someone's frustrated because it shows their internal core, their devotion to the truth. That's important to me. That's a good person. Now, if that person were to come in and post a bunch of weird, shilly crap, which we don't have any of those kind of people, then I might change my opinion, but we don't have those kind of people. Quite the opposite. So I debated getting on the Facebook page and posting a giant article covering this, but I thought, hey man, why don't we just make an episode, because I think it has value over the long term. One of the key examples that I give to my normal sort of moderate Democrat friends, which are the normal Democrats, normal human beings that just think that party's for them. They haven't done a bunch of research on it and figured out its links to very heinous stuff in this world. But they mean well. They mean well. They want the same world that we want. They just differ on how to get it. Some folks, right? I actually don't think moderate Democrats believe in socialism or communism. I don't think that's the case. I really don't. I think that as soon as you believe in socialism, you're a communist and you're a progressive and you're dumb as fuck. That's what I think. We can never have that on planet Earth until we can achieve it in the way that Gene Roddenberry figured it out. But if money exists the way it exists today, you absolutely can't have a dictator, a monarch, a communistic party, or a socialistic government. You can't pull it off. You can try it and you can do it, but you'll fail. It will end in tears. I know it, So I don't want to lose the camaraderie that we have that is more productive and more valuable than our disagreements. But disagreements are how we get things figured out. It's how we decipher things. I think when the disagreement reaches a level of you need to blow off steam, That is also actually not too bad. But when that steam ceases to produce itself and you get more and more frustrated over time, such that you sort of lose yourself, then that's where I think we need to stop talking for a little while, look at each other, and kind of start grinning, because that's the next thing we're going to do. And then we start over. We start trying to repurpose the way that we communicate what's frustrating us. So I think that we all mean well. We really want the truth. And I think that the breaking point, as far as I understand it, for folks that get angry at the flat earth thing is when they believe, for a collection of reasons, that it's a psyop. Once you believe it's a psyop, you want the psyop to stop. And so you want people to be quiet because they're carrying the agenda in your mind of an alphabet agency trying to mess with us. And it may be. It may be a psyop. There's the paper, and I forgot what the name of it was because it's been a while since I read the title of it, but it was something like some cognitive dissonance project. And, someone submitted this document on the internet with one of the alphabet agencies as the author of the document, which, believe me, I can make one of those any day of the week, and you'd believe every goddamn word of it. You put it on a fucking Reddit account, and it gets digested like it was real. But it said that they were going to create this sort of program such that you couldn't focus on what was real, which is going to completely disorient society, make society get off on the wrong track, and therefore suffer more slings and arrows while you're being disrupted, while you're being sort of misdirected towards this flat earth thing. Now, when flat earth was super duper hot, a year ago plus, people got sidetracked. They went off and made rockets. They made weather balloons and tried to fly things up, trying to find the curvature of the earth without doing the math first. And I can see where someone would say, look, there it is. Now, the other tact on this would be that it's creating a divide. Again, when someone gets angry, either one way or the other, they're a flat earther getting angry, they're globe getting angry, and they lose a friend, they lose a relationship, they become more isolated. Well, if there really are crazy people walking in public places shooting people, isolation is definitely the portfolio of that person's mind. So you don't want that either. You want your Sims social bar to be green and full constantly. What's interesting is that the conspiracies, they always get a backstory, don't they? Because I think a conspiracy always has a backstory in the end. Why did they kill somebody? It has a backstory. It's got a reason. Seth Rich is supposedly murdered because he gave away DNC emails to WikiLeaks. JFK is murdered for a million reasons, etc. down the line. So with the flat earth thing, the conspiracy behind it in a pro way is that God is sitting over the firmament and we are being abstracted away from God through this heliocentric model, which sort of perpetuates the total perspective vortex from the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, or infinitely small and insignificant in the universe, which is a ludicrous interpretation of heliocentric model, because so God has to be small before God can be powerful. God has to be literally like breathing on the back of your neck before he really exists and cares about your well-being. That doesn't make any sense. If God is infinitely omnipotent and knowledgeable, okay, well then it doesn't matter how big your number is in the infinite number system. He's aware of your existence and he does what he does. And for the ladies, I say he only as a typical reference. Something that gives birth is a she, so I understand the debate there. Women stop me every once in a while. Oh, you said he? I'm like, oh my God. Are you fucking offended now? It's like, okay, here's a back rub. You don't get offended. You extorted something out of me because you got offended. Cool chicks don't do that. Now, the flip negative side to flat earth is the psyop thing. You're being led astray, kept ignorant to the world to make you look like a fool in public and making you look gullible. So all this social media, once Zuckerberg debuts this bug which opens up everyone's private chat that you've ever had with someone's wife or something. You've said an N-word somewhere, you've done something inappropriate, you're joking, you're not really, maybe you weren't joking or someone wasn't joking to you. Everyone can see everyone's background. It'll be this Black Monday that's going to happen with Facebook on one day just to screw up the entire world as he just says, fuck it, boom. Then all this dissent and craziness will be exposed, and everyone will be struggling to get a job if they didn't do the China's social rating system properly, where you cowered it down and you went away from things that you believed because someone else was bullying you and calling you names in some other post. So on the flip side of the globe side, you have this observable science that we believe astronomy leads to cosmology. Physics is still completely fucked on the official side because gravity is a phenomenon. If you come over to the electrical universe, it all makes sense. But we think we're seeing this. We don't usually, and I shouldn't say we too heavily, but in the science side of things, the quote-unquote official science thing, no one's trying to say we're insignificant in the universe simply because there's a lot of universe out there. It just simply is the way that man's hubris gets injured for feeling important. So the defense mechanism is to retreat to a methodology of belief that keeps us at the center of the universe and right next to God. I'm going to say this. If you believe in a God, you should always feel very close to God all the time, all day long. You don't need another man to get to God. You don't need a church to get to God. You don't need a savior to be forgiven by God. If there is even such a thing as sin that is so horrible that God wouldn't be able to forgive you instantaneously. He made you. He gave you all the experiences you've had. If God exists like that. If you beat your kid up, and then your kid starts hurting animals and then beating his girlfriend up, well, you did that. You're the one that created that situation. So are you surprised? No, you created that situation. Well, if God puts you in the slumdogs of India and you don't exactly become the most happy kid, although those kids look pretty happy in that weird world, which is good, I guess. If there's no other choice, well, he would know what he put you up against. If you become a stone cold Ted Bundy, he knows that you either have a mental problem, you got a tumor inside your brain, pushing on the happy button, turning it off, maybe pushing on the angry button. So what's the flip side of the globe side? Who would create the globe theory in order to gain power and control over mankind? Well, as far as I've been able to deduce, it's all blamed on the Jesuits. It's interesting I can go my entire life rarely ever hearing that phrase, and then all of a sudden they're responsible for generally everything that's horrible in the universe, including this birthing of a globe Earth. When you really study globe Earth, you find out that a lot of societies had a globe Earth model. The Babylonians have history of globe Earth. The Egyptians definitely had it figured out. Again, the symbol for a year is a filled up circle with a circle around it, meaning the earth went around the sun. The symbol for a month was an empty circle surrounded by a circle, indicating either earth or perhaps a completely waned out moon. Okay, seems like they had it figured out too. Well, they certainly had the stars figured out, didn't they? Did they feel insignificant? I don't think so. I bet they felt pretty good when they built 3 massive pyramids that were shining like nothing we've ever seen. You know, 1 white, 1 black, and 1 red, with perhaps like a gold-plated perimeridian stone at the top. I mean, wow. Awesome. Do you remember when George Carlin did his bit about Earth, and he said that maybe Earth made man because Earth wanted plastic? And that eventually the Earth will just shrug its shoulders and man will disappear, and depending on what Earth wants next, it'll create another species to create that object for Earth. It's a hilarious routine. But now, what would we be doing, let's just say, from the religious side, which is more of the firmament dome side, to be angry at someone that we think is being co-opted by a Jesuit program to make everyone believe that the world is a tiny ball in space, insignificant, which is a subjective analysis by man? we're sort of taking the tack that we are coming to the rescue of God. God needs man to rescue God, because without man doing so, faith in God will disappear. And when faith in God disappears, then God himself disappears. As if God is that frail, that dependent on the belief systems and the frequencies in the mind of man. I don't know. I don't know if I buy that. It seems that if you believe in God, that God lets the world go to a certain level of infection, diseased thinking, and then God, he brings a little finale down for mankind, right? Back in Noah's days, he flooded the whole joint and just saved a boat with some animals on it. Moses' time, he killed everyone by the calf. Sodom and Gomorrah, that whole story. Burns down a city. Seems like he resets things if things get really bad. Okay. Is God going to let it go to a point where man, gets more powerful than God? Seems ridiculous. So maybe we don't need to save God. But perhaps the thinking goes a little deeper. And this is what's kind of strange. It would seem, beyond the shadow of a doubt, that the evil people that run this planet believe in Satan, Lucifer. They are the illuminated ones. In their mind, they know what is right, and we don't. To believe in Satan, you believe in God. If you believe in God and Satan, then you most likely believe in Jesus Christ, which is sort of hard for me to believe, that they would believe in Jesus. Maybe they think it is just good and evil, and one is called God and one is called the devil. And so you may see it as a holy war. Well, if the devil / the Jesuits are trying to make man lose faith in what is positive and good and true, which would be a flat disk somehow suspended in this planet, suspended in space, completely contradicting everything else that we can see in space. I mean, you can say the moon is a flat disk. It does have, again, perspective on the volcanic craters that are all over the surface. The sun rotates. We can watch that, so we know that's a ball. For some reason, we're different. Seems weird. I'm deciding right now that I'm going to put out planets in this episode, where planets is the secondary and this is the primary. That should give you something to look at for a night or two. What's interesting to me, that if you went that tact, and I'm not saying any of you have gone any of these paths, but this is sort of the sort of freestyle association I find with these subjects, I would suggest that one might spend more time trying to petition away churches of Satan opening up in various major cities, statues of Satan being erected where they use like a non-American to make the statue. Like they use this Japanese artist, the last one I saw, he probably has no affiliation with Christianity or Satanism at all. He's just been hired, so they abstract away any personal consciousness or I should say moral imperative to do right. He doesn't care. He doesn't believe in any of this bullshit. He thinks white people are crazy. So he takes our money and builds a statue of Satan. Well, the mantra of Satanism is human sacrifice. It really is. They'll lie to your face about it, but it's true. Your kids start disappearing if one of those churches shows up in your neighborhood. I covered that in my Satanism episode. Okay. You going to really worry about whether the fucking place is flat or round? You want to battle for God? I'm going to say that is probably the most acutely accurate thing you could petition. Heighten the awareness of those things. Start studying the crime records of before the church was created and after the church was created. Study how many kids disappear, how many wives disappear. See if there's any data that correlates there. If you want to fight a holy war, there are very specific places that are very specific and in your face all day long. Now let's go back onto the globe side, looking at the flat earth side. What are you worried about? Well, you're probably, let's say this much. If you come from the camp where you think it's a psyop, then you probably are sick and tired of psyops. You're sick and tired of these people getting their way, messing with the minds of people. And so if you think you're looking at a psyop, you're pissed. You're like, guys, stop feeding into this. You're going right back into the belly of the beast. You're doing their bidding by promoting this ludicrous disc surrounded by ice thing. So many of your theories are supposed to be ironclad, but you can't produce any of the evidence. Like, for instance, the gyroscope inside of a plane that flies from England to Cairo, from perhaps Minneapolis, Minnesota to Mexico City. Any of those northbound things, Japan to Sydney, you should be able to prove beyond the shadow of a doubt with the gyroscope in your lap that it didn't rotate, and therefore you're on a flat earth. I'm waiting. Somebody's got 10 grand to pull that off. You're going to buy the ticket. You're going to have some scientist at a local university help you build a gyroscope that matches exactly the kind of gyroscopes that are in the dashboard of the plane. There's got to be a pilot out there who flies this every single day who believes that this world is flat. And how many times have you seen the interview? I've mentioned this before several times. How many times have you seen the interview? There's a UK one. It's really seems reputable. The guy has a British accent. It seems like he's telling the truth. But he says, oh, man, the gyroscopes don't rotate when we fly around. Okay, fine. Take a goddamn picture, would you? Because that is the part of the game I've never seen. But if you really want to do it right, you time the flight. I don't know what it takes to get to Cairo from England or whatever these flights might be, these north and south flights. But you bring a camera with you, a camcorder or your telephone that has enough power and enough memory to hold the video. This camera here would probably not be good because it can only do about 2 hours. Get your little 1080p camera out or something and record it. Don't stop the camera. Maybe build it into the contraption. Look yourself in the face, film a watch, film the news on your phone or whatever, reload the website, CNN.com, Fox.com, whatever it is, prove it's that time of day, stick the camera in there without turning it off, film, you land, you pull it out, you film outside, there's Cairo, you film your face, you film the website again, and you turn it off. Boom, proof, no more debate anymore. Wouldn't you love to win that argument once and for all? But now, let's take it one step further because I don't think we've ever talked about this one. Okay. Now, this last section, I'm going to just randomly pick one of the sides because I'm picking one of the sides first. I think I have a predisposition towards that side. Don't think I'm picking on your side. I'm going to pick the flat earth side first. Somehow, some way, there's a new set of experiments. It's not in any agency that you don't trust. It's independent people, perhaps even people that were on your side, and they conduct an experiment. Personally, I don't even know what this experiment could be, but they prove the place is round. Prove it. They used to be like you. They spent maybe 5 years like you. And then they said, oh my God, it's this. Look, maybe they do the gyroscope thing and it rotates. Maybe they somehow convince the governments that have the treaty that says you can't go to the South Pole without permission, which would just make you think a little bit. And they fly over it. Continuous camera. Everyone's invited. Mark Sargent's on the goddamn thing, and he's like, holy shit, we just flew over the South Pole. It really is only 11,000 miles around on average. Okay, time to pack it up. It's a round ball. Would we be ready in the flat earth side of the game to accept that? What would it take? What would it take to prove to you flat earthers that the place is round? Would you have a counter excuse every single time it comes? Well, this was, and he burped and he sneezed, and that means that this is still potentially a flat disc, or that was all CG. Mark Sargent got bought out. He's a shill, and so of course he flipped to the other side. And it's the last step of any great conspiracy is that they lead a bunch of people in, and then boom, they got you. It's like, hey, come on inside this FEMA camp. It's really cool. It's really fun. We play cards and there's a bunch of rock and roll and sex inside. And then they shut the door and they start gassing everybody. But would you be ready? Would you be ready for that eventuality? And what would it take? Now let's go to the other side. Ball Earth. Gyroscope comes in. It ain't rotating. No matter what anyone tries to do, they cannot fly over the South Pole. They just won't allow it. Maybe somebody does a rogue project. And it's funny because people are starting to talk about this now. You get a bunch of money, you get a ship, you get a crane, you hit the coast of the South Pole or Antarctica where it's least inhabited. They crane up a bunch of snowmobiles and everyone just starts hauling ass and they run right into a fucking wall. There it is, baby. Dink, dink, dink. It's a wall. The place is, we are in a cage. We don't have all the explanations for the planets, the moon and the stars and the Milky Way and the sun, but there's a barrier here, previously undiscovered. That old story of the woman that left her snowmobile and said, I found the edge, I'm out of here, see you later. And of course they set all of her footage from her 35 millimeter camera that she took on the other side of this barrier was all exposed and, they lost it or whatever. Would you be ready to hear that it's a flat disc? The debate's been going on for years in a different realm. A bunch of different realms. Same goes for the moon hoax. But one of the biggest debates of the same magnitude, I think, is in the notion of extraterrestrial life. Now, it's one thing to say, well, of course, I think there's life out there. It just has to be life out there. I love that one. There just has to be life out there. I'm like, yeah, okay. Well, have you studied Roswell? Because you should. You should really get into all the eyewitness testimonies, the people that live with these people that saw that stuff, the fact that they were utterly scarred for their entire life as they were trying to make sense of what the hell they saw. Was it that guy on his deathbed with his daughter and his son? He said, look, they were creatures, man. And they didn't look... he was terrified of it. He just had no frame of mind to deal with it in 1947. I mean, the day the Earth stood still hadn't even come out yet. I think that was 51. And that was their Buck Rogers and comic books. Sure. A little bit different to see it in the flesh, I'm sure. Especially if it's walking around, telepathically talking to you. It sucks when you know that there's this binary choice, this left or right choice, and one of you has to be wrong if it's not a Matrix. This is where the Matrix guys are up there, Miles Davis is up there playing, and he's just like, you guys will figure it out eventually. You're both right. It's whatever you want the universe to be is what God allows it to be, and that's the greatest gift he's given you, is that you manifest your own reality. The Mandela effect, well, it is simply man reconciling all their differences. Well, I remembered it this way. Well, I remembered it that way. Well, how should we remember it today then? Because it's only going to be one way. Well, I guess I'll give it to you. Your dude is the one that invented that, and my childhood was different than I thought it was. Was Berenstain Bears? Well, we'll go with Berenstain. Seems to be where it's at today. There were slightly more of you Berenstain people in the universe, so when the internet launched and created a consensus reality, it just simply flopped to the one with more memories in that spelling. Your memories were erased. But isn't it funny you still have access to it? For me, just to digress, and I have said this, I don't know, half a dozen times, I apologize, but I have to tell you that I was in second grade, I think. I was going to Fairfield grade school in Chinooka, Kansas. And it was the day they told me that Eli Whitney was a black guy who invented the cotton gin. And I remember just thinking about that and what irony was. I remember the word irony was an intriguing word to me that was sort of such an adult word that I couldn't really grasp what irony was. And that was the very first time irony made sense to me. It was such an epiphany moment, a eureka moment in language and sort of abstract thought, that there was this a black man in my world, in my history, solved the cotton picking problem, but today it's a white guy from Yale. Fascinating. For me, it's extremely real. Now, could all my teachers have it wrong? I don't know. I asked two guys here, like I said, California, same exact day. It was like a Hollywood fucking moment. My friend in front of me, 70 years old. I think he might have been 71. Guy behind him, I think, was about 56. It's just the two of us. We're in this special studio up in El Segundo. I'm surrounded by just a crazy, amazing electronics. And so I've got this wall of LEDs showing all this wild stuff behind me, this huge editing lab in front of me. It was just literally out of a movie. It's like a sound stage for LED design. And I said, have you guys heard about the Mandela effect? No. Okay. Well, what is it? And I said, well, let me give you a little test. And I said, well, what do you guys remember about the guy that created the cotton gin? Well, it's Eli Whitney. They both knew it right away. I said, what do you remember about that guy? What's one attribute about that guy? My buddy, my business partner, and one of my best friends in the entire world. He was extremely brilliant, extremely famous, and extremely accomplished. He just looks at me and goes, in fact, both of them said it at the exact same time, as a matter of fact. It was almost in unison. That was the crazy part. They both said, well, what I remember is he was a black guy. I was validated. I was like, God damn it, I'm not crazy. This isn't a bunch of bumpkin teachers in the Midwest who simply didn't know the history. This was a giant part of the game. In California, my buddy was raised, as a matter of fact, he was raised in Japan, just a few miles out from Hiroshima after the bomb dropped. And then he was raised also in Salt Lake City and a bunch of other places. His father was a test pilot when he was young. The other gentleman, I don't know his background, but he was the one that owned the place, so he's extremely capable and smart. If this was a Black Mirror, if this episode turned into a Black Mirror, where we built up over the course of 1 hour the factions and through the course of the Black Mirror, the pros and cons, the for and against models of each conspiracy of both the flat earth disk and the globe earth people, they would come together. And of course, there's this jazz band playing the whole time, this sort of other group that's undefined. We don't know exactly what they believe, but they seem to have that sort of like really cool, we know what's going on, and eventually you'll know what you don't know our opinion, but eventually in the final act of this show, you're going to find out what we believe. And it turns out it's a matrix. And as soon as the fight starts, as soon as the first fist is thrown or some weapon fires, all of a sudden reality starts ripping. And maybe what we do is we build up the jazz music. It starts getting really intense. It's audible right where the fight's about to occur in some, 1970s Bronx bombed out fucking, some building demolition site, which was the Bronx back in the day. And the jazz just gets more and more powerful and powerful and powerful until reality itself just rips apart. And we all find out that we've been suckers the whole time. That the bias that we expressed about what our reality was really made of was all proprietary to our own desires, our weaknesses, our hubris. A scientist feels extremely hubris because of their ability to accept this standing on shoulders of previous scientists, thus coming up with great theories like gravity that are phenomenons with the traditional science before the ethereal electrical universe comes out. On the flat earth side, you're like, we just simply observed the fact that we don't feel like we're moving. The planes don't have guidance problems when they're going north to south. Again, if you were in Ontario, Canada, flying to, say, Mexico City, the horizontal velocity of which you were traveling goes from 250 miles an hour, let's just say, up by Ontario. I'm making this up, but I think that's a proportion, down to 1,000 miles an hour at the equator. Cairo's great because it's sitting on the equator. So you go from Glasgow, Scotland, down to Cairo. You have just sped up your flesh hundreds and hundreds of miles an hour just to get to Cairo. Somehow the airship that you're on doesn't get ripped to shreds. The plane doesn't tip over because it It doesn't have this momentum. It doesn't fly in a diagonal line. Somehow, the air flying over Cairo is going 1,000 miles an hour, and the air over Glasgow is going 250. And there's no problem aviating through that environment. I want to know how that works. How is that speed up occurring? Even with my ethereal model of gravity, as long as the world rotates, it doesn't make any sense. Because the atmosphere is its own thing. It would seem like Cairo would be really windy. Because at nothing else, you're spinning. And, you got to get this atmosphere to go the same speed as the ground if you're going to have a calm, relaxed, cool, or I should say even sunny day. There's no wind on you in Cairo for that particular day or a week or a month. Well, that means that the atmosphere is moving perfectly 1,000 miles an hour, roughly, with the surface of the earth. And if you just start walking, let's just say there's a nice road going straight to Scotland. Well, as you're walking, it's all slowing down. It's all slowing down. Interesting, right? Are we prepared to be wrong? Because somebody's wrong. Unless it's a matrix. When I think about the religious wars that have occurred on Earth, it dawned on me several decades ago, I should say, that if there's any truth after death, there's a whole bunch of people that are going to feel really silly that they dedicated their life to a crusade, that they ever took another person's life due to indoctrination of a religion. It's easy for us, citizens of the world that have never been soldiers, to flippantly talk about killing another human being and the justifiable causes that might feed into such an opinion. We all have these opinions. Sometimes we think that individuals should be removed from this planet because they're too evil. Sometimes we think that some people are so mentally disturbed that there's really little we can do to control them. They can't be sent anywhere in the world where they're going to be at peace because they're violent. They don't like what's going on in their brain, and there's just nothing we can do. And there are those out there that believe that people are too primitive to be on this planet. Perhaps they're too aggressive and they're too mean. They have been abused, perhaps, in the past, and so they carry this weird baggage, these grudges, and so they can never be nice to another group of people. And maybe at one point in time that was justifiable. But when you die, if there is an afterlife, I'm sure there is a sense of what was right and what was wrong, what was justified and what wasn't justified. I strive with my personal life to make that as painless as possible, to cross over into the other side with, hopefully a high 90 percentile rating, or percentage, I should say, not a rating, percentage of I know what I did wrong. I may not remember every specific thing I've done wrong to somebody I'm lipping off to somebody I love or whatever. But in the end, I know, well, when I was in my teens, I was wrong about this. When I was in my 20s, I was wrong about that. There's like maybe a handful of very specific events where I absolutely embarrassed myself with my own immaturity. But I'm aware of it. That's what I want to have happen when I pass. And overall, my intent was good. I may have been misguided, misled, or too impressionable or stupid, or even developed my own really stupid idea about how to communicate. Don't think I don't think about some of the shows I've made where I've been very flippant and said things that are a little harsh. Part of me is kind of like, well, it's almost like if I was a musician instead of making podcasts, and I made a bunch of albums that were really intense. Trent Reznor's first album was all about a breakup he had with the girl. And he put a lot of passion into that. And maybe he doesn't feel the same way anymore. And so he listens to his lyrics and he's like, my God, I'm surprised I can get a girlfriend today with all the crap I said about my ex-girlfriend. But as an artist, you know that you just have to be true to yourself as much as you possibly can. You know that all of your art is a stamp of who you were at a particular time. Prince, the artist Prince, really struggled with this whole thing. He did a lot of super sexed up lyrics when he was younger, and then he became a Jehovah's Witness and realized he was embarrassed He even changed lyrics of his songs when he sang them later in life. The song Sexy Motherfucker turned into Sexy Mama Father. Ridley Scott changed the unbelievably powerful line for Rutger Hauer's character Roy Batty in Blade Runner from saying, "I want more life, fucker," to "I want more life, father." It's not like he couldn't have said that, but he wouldn't have been able to say it in the way he said it. It just sounded funky. It makes sense. I mean, Terrell created him, so he was trying to say, "I want more life, father." I don't know. For those of us who are the diehard Blade Runner fans, it was taking one of the biggest lines out of the film and sort of pissing it away. But maybe Ridley Scott had some sort of remorse for allowing such a visceral line to go through his script. I mentioned all this for a purpose. As we disagree with each other, and as we believe that we have identified something to fight for, it has to have some serious perspective, and that perspective is going to be obviously prorated to our own intelligence and our own maturity at any one point in time. How many of you have discovered that GMO foods are bad for you, and then you want to tell the entire world? You want to get every human being off that shit. You find out how fluoride gives you osteoporosis, rots your teeth, and clusters in the pineal gland, thus shutting off your conduit to the universe. I thought of an interesting way of describing the left brain, right brain, because I teach it a lot from time to time. Your left brain is sort of your toolbox that allows you to survive on the surface of this planet. Your right brain is designed to give you your identity in the universe. It is literally your coax internet signal to God himself, to all knowledge and all previous existence, probably that is of which is to come and that is of which is past, dictated only by the memory mechanisms of life itself. We're developing a new science, and it's called awakening. Think about this. In the history of mankind, have we ever had to awake like this in the past? I'm sure there are moments, but I'm not sure there's ever been a reverse indoctrination moment like the Great Awakening. It's unknown territory. It would be as if, as a silly, stupid analogy, it would be as if all the cars of the world disappeared and the only cars that are available are Formula One cars. And so now you've only driven a Prius in your lifetime, and now you're driving a car that can hit 200 miles an hour if you simply hold the pedal down long enough. In a few seconds, you're going 200 miles an hour, a lethal speed. And so now you are trying not to kill yourself just going down the street. Well, the danger implied in that ridiculous analogy is similar to us trying to awaken and become accurate all at the same time. Maybe you think it's flat, it's a disc, so you're trying to awake as quickly as possible. And probably one of the things that you never want to do, and I should have said this a long time ago in this episode, but if you respect my advice at all, let me give you a piece of advice. And I'm not sure a lot of folks do this, but sometimes it's embedded inside memes. And this was one of the points of the individual that posted on both Facebook, and I think it's two different individuals. Maybe it's the same person, but he said very, very accurately, he goes, "Look, I don't mind someone necessarily having a different opinion than mine, but I don't want someone to be calling me a globetard all day long. You're insulting the fact that I simply have a different belief than you." Now, there's plenty of, I don't know what you call them, insults on both sides of the fence, little catchwords, little phrases that they say against each other on both sides of the fence. Perhaps that's what we'll do. Moderators, this is what we'll do. We will make a policy that you can't post anything that's calling people's names, because that's the policy on the YouTube channel, right? You can't come in and just simply call everyone idiots, call me an idiot, whatever, and not contribute something back into the system. I have no problem with someone sitting me down and go, "All right, I got like imagine someone from NASA showing up at my house and they go, you better come announced. Let me just tell you that much." You go to my house and you've got like a van pulled in, filled with a bunch of little boxes. And you're like, "Okay, here's what we're going to do. I'm showing up here on Saturday morning I need your Saturday and I need your Sunday. I have carefully prepared a bunch of little devices. Some of them are really elaborate with a little bit of fuel in them. We're going to take them out in your back patio where you film your show. And I'm going to show you how each element of the space mission worked back in 1969. I brought the old computers. I'm going to let you play with them. And I'm going to show you how this was possible. And then we can talk about your smoking guns, whatever you think is a smoking gun. And I will use one of these little machines to show you how this worked. I even brought a spacesuit with the backpack. And I've got some very hot lights that we're going to shine on you. Got some generators we're going to fuel up, and we're just going to make you on the outside. You're going to hold a thermometer in your hand. It's going to be 208 degrees Fahrenheit. And I'm going to have one attached to your back that's going to ice you down, and it's going to be 280 below. And you're going to feel fine in this suit, but you're going to have proof that this is what the suit's enduring, and you're going to be okay. And we're going to do it with the battery pack that's inside that little thing on your back. All with 1969 technology. I would invite such a thing to occur. Be a hell of a lot of work, I think. But that would be a productive, constructive way of communicating an opposite theory to me so that I might change my mind. Now, we're going to get really anal about people slipping and saying these words from time to time. You know, again, maybe 3 strikes you're out kind of thing or something like that. But I hate to do that crap. I think that sometimes you need to just blow steam off and get angry sometimes, and that's where you get to your healing. That's where you start to deprioritize the way of talking. Like I've said to you guys several times in the self-improvement episodes, one of the best things you can do if you're angry at another human being is one, go take a poop and relax a little bit. Give yourself some time. But if you're still passionate about it after maybe half an hour's gone by, and again, I know that there are critical moments in time where decisions need to be made very quickly and you won't be your best. Those are just going to be moments where you're going to, I would say loosen up your mind, let the universe flow through you, and sometimes you'll say things that will astound you. You will get your point across without destroying relationships and causing more chaos that you're trying to resolve. But one of the things you can do if you still feel very passionate and angry at someone, betrayal, you disagree with them, again, you think they're living for the dark side, but you're on the right side, the light side. If you live by yourself, you can do this in your own apartment, or if you have time to yourself in your own dwelling, your domicile. Talk it out. Yell at that person, however you think you need to do it. Try to prove your point. It's just like that old exercise show. You got the guys on low, medium, and high. And the high guy just looks crazy. He's just, dancing up a storm there. Keep going. Keep testing your theory. Talk until you can't be mean anymore. And what'll end up happening, if you're like me, is that you will use 10,000 words to be super mean and angry. And you're voicing your true inner passion. You're not lying about it, but you're just not being polished about it. And then what'll happen typically is you'll find a tenth of those words. If you said 1,000 words, you'll say 100 words. And then you'll find 50 words. 50 words that you can say without getting emotional. It's like that perfect scene in a dramatic movie where someone just says, I thought you were like this, or I thought you understood that we had this commitment, or whatever your issue is. And you will get the person to see into your soul more accurately because, one, you're not attacking them, so they're not on the defense. You're obviously hurt if you're angry. And so this is your chance to communicate whatever that other person did to you meant. Now, sometimes people are ignorant and they simply don't have a method of understanding what you're saying. Hey, if that's the case, you're probably with the wrong person, even if they're just your friend. So thank your lucky stars. You identified they had an issue and you're able to move on now. It's disappointing that they weren't the fantasy in your head, but then that's probably your problem and not their problem. We've all done that. How many times have you been in a relationship with someone and within 2 seconds you have thought up some incredible life story? You're like, oh my God, we're going to get married at this place and we're going to live this life. We're going to have X number of kids and oh man, life is going to be amazing as long as I stay with this human being. But it's all a fantasy in your head. The compatibility that you think you have, you really haven't proven it to yourself yet. Maybe you're compatible in category A, but you're not compatible in category B. So you get angry at them because they don't live up to your fantasy. Here's the thing that is probably the reason why, and it took me this episode to probably distill this out of my mind. The flat earth versus globe earth is an amazing sociological experiment to see how we react. I think in the end, even if it were a psyop, that the flat earth thing was the situation, or a psyop that it's globe, who are the benefactors? Well, those who are on the right side of science, or right side of reality, let's just say, you're obviously going to be a winner in the category of what is right and what is wrong, what is accurate and what is inaccurate. That's fine. But in the end, if you're open-minded enough to see the benefits, you got to see into yourself if you're on the losing side. How did you get deceived? Why did you get deceived? What information did you need to have prior to being introduced to this concept that took you for a ride for however many years would have prevented you from latching onto it so hardcore? If you were a sideline person, sideline people are very interesting. They're sitting on the fence, right? They don't take any position whatsoever. I would wager that an overwhelming majority, I would say, I don't know, I'm just pulling this out of my ass, but over 70% of the people who say they're on the fence, they're worried about being wrong, but they do have a preference. They may see a bunch of flat earth stuff and go, man, I kind of think this place might be flat. I don't feel us moving, have you? And they say they can't see curvature in any plane on earth. You can't, but people will tell you, I saw a curvature of the earth. Like, no, you fucking didn't. You have to be 80 miles up to see curvature of the earth. You do. You're wrong. Neil deGrasse Tyson did a presentation with the blow-up globe, and he said that, and it's probably one of the only things he said that was accurate about the whole movement. Could be the shape of the windows in these planes that it bends light and makes you think you're seeing a curve. Maybe that's a scam that's being pulled on the aviation staff and the passengers of the planes. Who knows? But you don't see it. We want to know how we tick. For those of you who watch all my episodes because you love the show and you love these existential conversations, not that you agree with me at all, but it stimulates your own beliefs in whatever the hell I'm talking about. Don't you benefit from listening to me disagree with you sometimes? I got guys, I love the guy, but he's totally wrong with this thing. But you go watch his other episodes, they're not about that subject. It's a variety show. Well, in the end, you went to bed at night going, I'm totally right about this. And maybe you are. Hey, man, I'm just a guy trying to do my best to analyze information. Who would have ever thought that the internet would be responsible for bringing out such incredible experiences such that we could observe ourselves from afar, but also be in the petri dish at the same time? I'm in the petri dish, but I feel like at times I can see the petri dish from, the, what do they call it? The 30,000 foot view. That's awesome. For me, that's incredible. I think that when this all settles down, the youth of the world will not have that epiphany. They won't have the ability to see what we saw. So we're going to be learning in this generation, where everyone is paying attention, from 15 years old to 80 years old. If you're paying attention, this slice of the population is going to learn a bunch. And then the next generation that comes up is not going to get it. And then we'll all have our own Deep Thoughts Radio, trying to pass this information back down. We all have these little fantasies in our brains of how the world could be re-engineered. I give a glimpse into one of the fantasies I've had for forever, but definitely during the course of this show, which is that, I mention it every once in a while, but it's the institution fantasy of having a school of higher learning. A school of higher learning where we can all be together. And, if this issue, we had like a wing on the college, wings of colleges have like the drama wing, the engineering wing, the mathematical wing, all these other wings. We would have wings that it's like, that is the the shape of the planet wing. And there's a division in there for the flat earth, and there's a division in there of the globe earth. And these people don't sit in their own worlds, quarantined from each other. They do have their researchers that go off and research new ways of proving their theory. But when they come back into the room, it's just like the multiverse and the single verse folks that wanted to dispute how atoms and atomic matter is held together in this, was it Biggs, or was it, the boson particle, the God particle? I think a fantasy of mine would be able to walk into a gigantic research room that's just a war room. It's all around there, and one side of the war room is all flat, and one side of the war room is round, and then we have little annexes, little corners where someone thinks it's an inverted sphere, or I forgot what the name of that one model is, where the Earth is on the inside of a sphere, but there's all those other models, and then we have the matrix group. The matrix group's like, well, we think we figured out literally the fabric of the universe is a binary memory system. And so they have tests, and we bring it together, and we all dig each other. And the only goal that we have between all of us is to figure out what the hell is going on here. And we're completely content with being wrong. Because in the end, as soon as you find out you're wrong, guess what happens next? You get to be right. Right? You just go, okay, oh shit, man, I thought I was a high five, dude. You win, boom. I'll get the drinks tonight, Now, let's go down the path of what we think is right. Since you proved it was flat or you proved it was round, well, let's investigate that more. Because there's mysteries no matter whichever one wins. Obviously, if Globe wins, it's less of a mystery. If the Matrix wins, oh boy, get ready for the jazz to pour out of that world. Anyway, I think you feel me. Hopefully this was entertaining for you. It was very therapeutic for me, let me just tell you. For those of you on the Facebook page, worry not. It's an organic thing, And so we're going to make mistakes. I guarantee you the moderators on there are fantastic human beings. They care deeply about other human beings. At no point are they trying to create a bias. It just so happens they have their own passionate beliefs. So I appreciate you guys for coming in and voicing your opinions that are different than everyone else's. It's part of the game. It's part of the game we're playing here. But you know what? We're all on the same team. We are all on the same team. Just as an exercise on a daily basis, maybe spend 5 minutes thinking about the other team being right and how that would affect you. Maybe start from a fresh slate and go, all right, I've spent 5 years in what I believe, which is different than those other folks. But let's go from scratch and let's try to see if we can believe the other side again. And maybe something's in the middle by going through that exercise. And if you haven't been already, go to deepthoughtsradio.com. It's got all the feeds, video, audio, locked Facebook group, Patreon page, a Twitter page, as a matter of fact. So until we meet again, take care of yourself and someone else. Over and out.